Hello and a very warm welcome back to the garden. Now there are so many different ways of composting, but for me I try and keep things as simple as possible, and if you're into the simple methods that are also effective, then you'll enjoy this video that explains the lazy, no-nonsense way of composting that we've been using for around 15 years. What is compost? Well, put simply, it is the breakdown of organic material into this beautiful rich humus that contains organic matter, nutrients and microorganisms. The great thing about lazy composting is that there's only a few key things that you need to follow in order for it to be effective, and the first one is that you want to make sure that the sides are at least 1 meter long. But why should we go for larger compost bins? Well, the reason why is when you have smaller ones like this, especially the Dalek ones, the tall, narrow ones, is that they don't really have that big of a core inside, which means it's not as likely to warm up. And that warmth and heat that you get from bigger compost bins help promote the decomposition and make it the perfect environment for all the organisms that help break down that organic matter. There are two categories of ingredients to add into a compost bin. The first one are your green materials. These are high in nitrogen and tend to have a greater moisture content. The next are your brown materials. These are high in carbon and tend to have a lower moisture content. You can find a comprehensive list of green and brown ingredients to add to your compost bin down below in the video description. And just quickly, I just want to draw your attention to grass clippings. These are great, high in nitrogen, you can use them absolutely, but you want to use them sparingly, not thick layers in your compost bin, because these can make a sludgy, smelly mess. So instead, with grass clippings, apply them in fairly thin layers of around 1 inch or 2.5–3 centimeters, and it should be fine. Now, usually when you're just starting off making compost, there are different ratios of green and browns that are recommended to follow, and I usually go for the 2 parts brown to 1 part green. But with lazy composting, we don't worry about that at all. We just simply, whatever is available, no matter what time of year, we'll just put it on the compost bin. So for example, at this time of the year, as I'm cleaning up the garden, we've got quite a lot of brown material coming in, and we just put it on as and when. And the same applies for anything that you get in your house. If you have some veg scraps, the odd bag of used coffee grounds from your local cafe, all things like that can be added. There is really no need to worry about ratios as long as you follow one key rule. That one rule for lazy gardening is simply that you have to add diversity into your compost bin. It doesn't work if you just add 2 or 3 ingredients and let it be. You want to add as many different ingredients and materials on that list as possible. And I know, say during the growing season, you're going to get a lot of green materials, but that's fine. Just use lots of different green materials. Use whatever you have in your house, newspaper, cardboard, etc. You just want to add loads in smaller quantities of different things. And the reason why is because by using diversity, you're going to have that natural going to be a lot more of a natural balance in terms of pH, as well as the nutrients that are going to be available in your compost. For example, if you just use 2 or 3 different ingredients, you might be lacking some micronutrients. And the other thing is that by using the principle of diversity when adding to your compost bin, you're naturally going to get quite a good balance in terms of greens and browns anyway, so it just makes it even easier for you. For over 15 years, we've just been applying that principle of adding a wide variety of ingredients in a kind of little and often manner, and we haven't had a single problem with our compost. It is that simple to do lazy compost. Now, when a bin is nearing completion, there's one more thing that I like to do. And that is to jump on it or even just step on it, weigh it down. And the reason why is you can suddenly fit in a lot more material and because it's closer together, it'll help heat up a little bit more. Now once you've filled your compost bin, the last thing that I like to do, mainly to serve as a reminder that it's full up, is to put a covering over it. Now this is actually some sheeting left over from a building project, but we usually use things like cardboard and newspaper. And this gives one other advantage, and it helps to shed some of the rainfall, because when you get loads of rain, it can sometimes get a little oversaturated in there. You do want moisture. Moisture is important, and if you've just built a bin during dry weather and it's filled up, do add some watering cans full of water over that just to add the moisture. But then it's always a nice idea just to put a little covering over the top. Now, when is lazy compost ready? Well, the compromise of being lazy is that it often takes a bit longer than, say, hot compost, which can take, a month or 2 months. What you want to do is wait around 6 to 8 months. Now, it sounds like a long time, but it is very much worth the wait. And when you have a little look, it should look almost like soil and really nice and rich, and everything's broken down. Now, you may have some kind of sticks left over. That's absolutely fine. I don't worry about that. Now, for me, the ideal way of testing if it really is ready is to simply use my nose and smell it. And if it smells like a vibrant, fresh, full of life forest floor, then that is a signal for me that it's ready to use. So I'm going to now use this compost to help put some of the raised beds to sleep over winter. A very common concern that people have about composting and making compost bins is rats, and whether it encourages rats or you get rat issues. Now, the only real reason why you would get serious rat issues with your compost bins is if you're putting in cooked food and things like dairy and bread. And you'll have noticed that I don't include those on the ingredient list, because if there's no kind of food stuff for the rats to eat, they're not going to be interested. Now, yes, they might like the warmth, but the thing is, rats are going to be around the area anyway, and surely you'd rather them be at the compost bin rather than trying to get into your house. So if you are a little worried, just try and put your compost bin as far as possible, but as long as you don't put in cooked food and things like bread and dairy, you're going to be fine. Now, something you should try and aim for, if you have the space, is for around 3 compost bins. The reason why is 1 compost bin is going to be ready, 1 compost bin is something you're going to be filling, and the other compost bin is already full and it's starting to break down. So you kind of have that complete cycle. There's always a bin to fill up, and there's always a bin that has compost available. And if you want to find out the best way to use your homemade compost at this time of year, check out my video that I've done, which is a complete guide of preparing raised beds for winter. And if you're interested in some 100% organic and ethical clothing, then click here, and they're designed for gardeners. So thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Goodbye.